Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting. It's Tuesday, February 4th. I'm going to be calling our meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. and we're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. I feel like with all the different events of the world these days that maybe that moment of silent reflection should turn into moments of silent reflection. Moving on to item 1.2, land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters in which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska River and Forest. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest around the table? None were received in advance of the meeting. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3. Correspondence 3.1 Northumberland County regarding municipal restructuring study. I know that you've had a chance to see the letter that was attached to the agenda today. I'd like to just give you a little bit of a context to this, and that is this letter is it comes to you starting probably with a conversation that was had at the budget deliberation tables at the county council in December. And so I know that council is aware that during the budget deliberations, I had brought forward a motion to reduce any increase to the tax levy of being no more than 6.5% when we were originally presented a budget of 8.64%. We eventually were presented with a budget that was an increase of 6.12%. And during that final deliberation, I put forward a motion that I'm going to just read to you on December 18th. The County Council directs staff to arrange for a special County Council meeting in January of 2025 to discuss concrete steps for an organizational/service delivery/cost savings review, including but not limited to all staff positions. And so we did have a recent meeting, this special meeting at the County Council, and this is where this letter stems from. We had a robust discussion about whether or not we could get lower tier input and decisions on whether or not to pursue a study that would be looking at service rationalization, restructuring, and or amalgamation. So this really stems from, again, that kind of impetus of looking at, are there certain programs and services and portfolios that are being done at both the county level and at the lower municipal level? Are there places where we can actually look very seriously at some restructuring and cost savings? And what exactly would that look like? And so we have to have input, we have to have discussion from the lower tiers as to whether or not you would want to participate in such a study to see whether where those kinds of cost savings could be realized and what kind of restructuring opportunities there might be. Because after all, it's still the same taxpayer that's paying to us as well as to the county. And there's been a lot of discussion that there are certain line items that we do both here at the lower tier as well as at the county level. So this is really the context for the letter. I know that each municipality is going to be having a similar discussion, but we do need to have a discussion about this and a motion, if you feel so appropriate, to get back to the county on our stance. Councillor Less.
Yeah, the idea of cost saving review, and I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with spending $150,000 to get there. But as to taking it to the next step, potential amalgamation, I would not want to get involved in the geopolitical thought processes of trying to bring 7 municipalities together who each have vested interests to try and figure this out before my term of life is ended. So I just don't think amalgamation is practical, but if they can do cost savings, yes.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to weigh in on? Yeah, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I think my question is more around the term amalgamation. Maybe you could clarify based on the conversations you've had. When they talk about amalgamation, are they talking about amalgamation of services, or are they talking about the amalgamation of government?
I think that that's probably an essentially contested concept depending on which municipality you're taking into account. So it's up to us to be able to give input on the kind of language that we want to put forward in terms of a motion going back to the county council table. And, to your point, Councillor Les, yes, a study like this would have to be done by a third party. It can't be done internally. People internally can't be reviewing their own structures and their own jobs and their own services. But I would say if you look at the millions of dollars that we spend on certain line items and certain projects, that is a small drop in the bucket to try to really have a hard look. And we haven't had a review since 2001 at the county level. Any other? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I do see a lot of merit in definitely, sorry, I thought you were in reviewing some cost savings and sharing of services across the county. I think if we go forward with making any investment into this, though, I really want to know from the other municipalities too, how serious that they would be in this. I don't want to go down the path and waiting and spending the money to say no. Like I really want to know how serious that they would be.
That's a great question, Deputy Mayor. I can tell you from sitting around that table at both budget deliberations and our more recent meeting that everybody's very, very serious about being concerned about the cost of living in our community. Everybody's very concerned about looking at where there's duplication of efforts and services. So I don't really think that there's anybody who's not in it. I think it's to the degree that they want to be looking at some of the restructuring efforts. But in terms of service rationalization and some restructuring opportunities, there has been very strong support around that table from the council members there, but we felt very strongly that we needed to bring it back to the lower tiers for a conversation. Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I watched the deliberations of the meeting, and I appreciate that it's come to the lower tier councils for consideration prior to moving forward at the county level. I think I echo Councillor Les's comment. I think where we can find opportunities for efficiencies and savings in particular services, I think that's a worthwhile exercise. I'm not interested in a broader conversation about amalgamation. I think there's a lot of really critical thinking that's been done since the 2001 amalgamations across the province that sort of look at whether we in fact have struck the right balance in terms of cost savings and efficiencies, but potentially at a loss of local democracy and democratic processes in our communities. And I think that's something that we're wrestling with the county. And so I think this is not a time for us to be looking at even further amalgamation. But that said, if there are particular services, then I would support moving forward.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Councillor Todd.
This is more of a clarifying question, but my understanding is then all 7 local governments would have to agree to the study before the study would go forward. Is that right?
No, that is not correct because we have a majority vote at the county council table. It's probably premature for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I just taking the temperature at the table is I do think that there is real serious interest and looking at where we can tighten the belts, and a real, as I had mentioned earlier, real concern about the cost of living right across Northumberland County. I think there's absolutely united concern for that. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. So when you say at the vote at County Council would determine, so if Brighton, for instance, is the far end, if they decided we're good, they would be forced to participate? Is that what you're saying?
Well, when we make decisions at the county council table, it's like decisions here where the majority vote determines whether or not a study goes forward. That's the democratic process. Councillor Less.
If somebody said no, we'd put tariffs on them.
I think it's just way too early to me making any jokes about tariffs, Councillor Less. Having said that, I do have a motion that we can put up. In order to do that, I'm going to turn the chair over to the deputy mayor.
Thank you. So, all right. So we have a motion up there. Just wait till it's zoomed in. So this is a motion moved by the mayor, whereas the Council of the Municipality of Port Hope considered the correspondence dated January 22nd, 2025, regarding the Municipal Restructuring Study Report 2024-167 from the County of Northumberland, and whereas Council acknowledges that opportunities for cost savings and service efficiencies exist between upper and lower tier municipalities in Northumberland, which require further review and consideration. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Port Hope supports, in principle, option B as outlined in the Municipal Restructuring Study Report 2024-167 from the County of Northumberland, and that Council further supports that this preliminary study to consider restructuring services to eliminate duplications and or waste be conducted by a third-party consultant, and that staff be directed to work with the County of Northumberland and third-party consultant to determine where efficiencies in service delivery can be identified and implemented, and that staff be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the County of Northumberland and allow all lower tier member municipalities. And all lower tier municipalities. So can I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Councillor Andrews. And I will open that up for discussion. Any more discussion?
So we would do our part. Would the county be doing similar on their staff? Is that what you're seeing here? Or does somebody come in and do everything?
The county would hire a third-party consultant to look at the entire structure of the county and look then how it relates to the programs and services and positions, and then compare and contrast to what happens at the lower tiers as well. So there's many different areas that we had discussions about whether or not we need to have duplication of similar programs or similar positions or similar services, or if there is actually an opportunity to eliminate some of that. So it's really about, as this says, duplication and efficiencies.
Just a procedural question. So this is, you're bringing this forward now, committee of the whole. I just foresee, of course, this is going to hit social media world. There was talk originally of amalgamation. It's not in this motion here. So I'm assuming we're going to have a lot of discussion in the community. So what happens from here? Does this come back to council? And how will we communicate this communication? Because I'm assuming it's gonna hit the keyboard soon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, in terms of process, the item is being discussed today at Committee of the Whole. It will come back to Council on February 18th for final disposition. So, this motion, if it is passed tonight, will be in front of Council. And as you know, as Council is aware, there are multiple opportunities for community engagement with respect to any feedback that the members of the public wish to provide to Council. Tonight, there is a question period. On February 18th, there will be an opportunity to provide public input through the public input period, as well as a question period that will be there. And then, of course, members of the public always have the opportunity to connect with Council by providing correspondence through either emailing members of Council, setting up meetings, or emailing clerk@porthope.ca.
Thank you very much. Any other questions by any member of council? Okay, so I will call the vote then. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. And I will pass the chair back over to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, items for consideration. 4.1, presentation by Robin Dines, Chair, Board of Management of Heritage Business Improvement Area, HBIA, regarding the 2025 budget. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's going to be a short conversation around the budget. We present the board developed and approved the budget, and it was presented at the HBIA annual meeting on January 13, and it was approved there as well. Okay, you can't really see this very well, so hopefully you have the, okay, the very first thing I'd like to talk about is the levy, which is $62,317 that comes into us by the levy of the property owners in the HBIA district. This levy we've done some research and find that this levy is relatively low comparative to other municipalities of our size, but the reason that we can function on this is because we work and leverage the work done by economic development and Parks and Recreation, and work with the municipality, and the municipality supports us for things that they don't charge us for. So another municipality that has exactly twice the budget that we do as much as they do on half the money, because we do have a good relationship with the municipality for what they do for us and how we leverage what they're doing as well. So so the 62 is what the budget is, our foundational budget from the levy. In up to 2022, we had a surplus of $25,550. Another surplus in 2023 of $19,498. And then we had other income this year that was crucial to help us get through the initiatives that we had for the campaign, for the construction. We got $24,000 from filming. We received $13,000 plus for parking, and because we received 75% of the parking revenues for the construction period. And then Main Street, which was funding that Parks and Recreation received, they forwarded $5,000 of that to us as well. So that total comes to $42,691 from the other funding. So all in all, the resources we have available to us is $150,056. The expenditures that you see on here are for the base budget, $62,300, which is it covers just the basics. So advertising, contract services, horticulture, you can see them listed there. We are a group of volunteers with one part-time staff, and so our objective is to work on beautification and advertising promotion. So we have to make sure that we keep our focus on those two things because our resources, both human resources and financial resources, are somewhat limited. So we leverage what is being done by the municipality. We work very closely with economic development. One of the things that came out of the construction was a working committee that is run now by economic development that has a number of key partners for us to working with. And that includes Parks and Rec, Economic Development, the Chamber of Commerce, Critical Mass, and Capitol Theatre. So we've been able to support what has been going on as far as initiatives and events, and be able to actually accomplish quite a lot with the funds that we have available to us. We're very fortunate that at the last, at the AGM, we increased our number of board members by 3. Tina Abernathy, who is from Owen and Tina at the Nook Realty, Sarah Guy, Archer Guy and Associates, and Aaron Pierce from the Capitol Theatre. So we have a very, very strong board with a lot of diverse experience, as well as there's building owners, there's people who live downtown on the board. And there's a real groundswell now of people in the community wanting to work with us to make a difference in the community. So Port Hope has a very strong volunteer base. Okay, to be able to in spending these funds, we've set up this structure. The very first meeting we had as a full board was to have a strategic review of what we wanted to do in 2025. And based on the people that had joined the board, this is the new structure. We now have a vice chair as well, who is Dean. He is a principal at Atelier, and he's been on the board for over a year, and he's a really great resource on many fronts. He lives downtown, he has a business downtown, and he has a lot of history. So, and then also we have hired a permanent part-time manager of marketing and administration, and she's been excellent at helping develop a structure in the HPIA, as well as developing relationships amongst all of the business groups, or all the businesses downtown. These are the different categories of focus that we're looking at. Obviously finance, and then governance. Film we're looking forward to working with economic development on the new film policy. It really impacts the downtown core, not just on the fact that it's disruptive sometimes, but we have to focus on the advantages of it as well. There's we got a nice uptick in our budget because of the filming of Dairy, and we're looking forward to even working to be able to, when they launch Dairy in the fall, that what can we do as a town to participate in that and draw people into Port Hope. So there's things like this that we want to make sure that we are a destination, that we put ourselves on the map, and that one of the other things that's key to us in working with economic development is working on the brand, understanding and supporting the brand strategy as well. So destination marketing is really important to us. That's why we're really excited about Aaron and Tina coming on the board. Tina works in real estate, and we're looking at what types of businesses in those empty storefronts would make a better downtown for people coming to shop or whatever experience they want to have in downtown. So, and then with Erin, we've worked really well with her this past year on developing packages to bring people into town. And with the construction, it was a real, it really showed up how important the Capitol is to the downtown core, because, when it was very quiet, when the Capitol had a play on or something, all of a sudden downtown came to life. So we're thrilled that she's on our board now, and we are looking at different projects that we're going to work on to work with accommodations to do like longer stays coming to Port Hope. So there's lots of things in the coffers, like working on the events, just to keep putting us on the map and bringing people to our town. So that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Robin, and thank you for your service. Thank you for elevating the HBIA to a whole new level, and to all the volunteers that have come together to create such a robust and exciting governance structure. I think it's the beginning of the beginning of seeing where these new types of collaborations and cooperation, what the returns are going to be, and we all very much appreciate it.
Thank you. We've got a really good team.
And we're very grateful. Any questions or comments from around the table? Yes. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. So just something that you said at the very end there that captured my thoughts was when you said the Capitol Theatre really helps bring in business. So I'm not sure if you listen to our budget meetings, but we have a lot of discussions about grants and things like that we offer. And I know business owners are very busy operating their business, but is there any data, or has there been thought about collecting data to support the idea behind some of these events, that they really do drive business? 'Cause I hear this, but to have some data behind that to actually validate, has that ever been done?
Data is something that is lacking, but just as an example, we do have, we did a package with the Capitol going through construction. It was called Shop, I get this wrong every time, Shop, Dine, and Show. And so we subsidized part of the ticket for restaurants, part of it for shopping, and then the Capitol subsidized part of the ticket. And it was so successful that there were our budget of $2,000 to go against the initiative was quickly used up, and we increased it to $5,000 right away. So it's the fact that happened. That's probably the only data that we really have. But that's something that we're really looking forward to doing, and working with economic development and Parks and Rec to collect more data on the interchange between the different businesses and what brings people to town. Because not every event is going to be the right customer for every store. So that's one of the things we're talking about at the board level, is what data can we collect and get the stores on side to collect, so that we know where our customers are coming from and what is drawing them here.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So thank you again for coming and for the update. So the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Les. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on. Thank you, Robin. Moving on to report 4.2 CAO 0225, reuse of growth readiness funds to offset additional strategic plan costs. So does the CEO have anything to add before we have any questions or comments?
No, sorry, through the chair, nothing to add. Just reiterating again that the original approved budget for the development of the strategic plan was $30,000. It was initially anticipated that a large portion of the tasks outlined in the roadmap that was previously approved by council would be completed utilizing internal resources. That has since changed, and as well as with the announcement with the Wesleyville site and OPG, the scope of that in terms of the strategic plan has changed as well. So it only seems fitting that perhaps to cover that cost, the request to take the $24,000 from those funds to offset that increase would be required.
Thank you for that. And I think the report was very very straightforward and very well laid out. Any questions or comments, Councillor Les?
Question, but just a suggestion that we invite OPG representatives to our strategic meeting or a portion of it so they can add their input.
I would assume with those additional monies that would definitely be a necessary component of our strategic planning process. Any other questions or comments, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So I see here in the report that the strategic plan is still for the period of 2025 to 2028. And we approved this prior to OPG. And I said in the last council meeting that we as a municipality don't have, I agree, we need the short-term strategic plan. That's one thing in and of itself. But with potential significant growth coming, I also see a long-term strategic plan. So will we be doing that at the same time? Do we need more funding for that? Because I think they go hand in hand. And I think we need to do a good job. And we need to look at 5-year plans, and we need to look at what is our 20, 30-year plan. So when does that happen?
I think, sorry, through the chair, that would certainly have to be something discussed and directed by council as a whole. I think so far the resolution or what I've been made aware of to this point is to move forward with the strategic plan as outlined in the previous reports and to follow the roadmap. So that was the direction that's been provided. I don't disagree that certainly a long-term plan should be looked at. But I think, again, in terms of what the growth is going to look like and in future forecasting, what is going to look like once things have gone underway in terms of further communication or discussion with OPG with relation to that announcement would be premature at this point to say what that would look like. So again, I think with more fulsome information coming forward, that perhaps in a future budget 2026, 2027, that those things should be looked at. I think there's a possibility for a component as well for some funding, perhaps with future additional funds as well from OPG funds to look at a broader spectrum of a strategic plan that would sort of encompass that larger insight.
Follow up?
And thank you. And I say this also aside from OPG. I think we can see next door that the urban sprawl is coming this way. And I grew up in an area that has been developed now just north of Whitby, and it's coming here. And I think the community as a whole needs to decide, what do we want Port Hope to look like in 20 or 30 years from now? We need to make that plan. So I think that is something maybe potentially we need to look at in our next budget process.
Thank you. And I do think there's an opportunity for us to even contemplate that as we're going through this strategic plan and identify that as a need for future budgeting. So I don't think it's mutually exclusive at all in terms of a process. But I think this strategic plan is needed and really overdue. So let's at least start to take some of those preliminary steps as we build towards that longer term vision. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you for the report. Thank you for the clarification. So the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 4.3, Report ES 0325, redesignation of overall responsible operator ORO and the assignment of acting ORO. Policy update. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before council considers this report?
Through you, Chair. Not a whole lot to add. This report just summarizes the changes to the overall responsible operator policy due to the reorganization and restructure of the department. Also the fact that I carry the licensing required to carry the ORO for both water and wastewater departments. So I take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, so the recommended motion is in front of us. Can I get a mover and seconder for what's on the agenda? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to report 4.4 ES 0425 re 2024 Municipality of Port Hope Drinking Water System Annual and Summary Report. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we have any further comments or questions on it?
Again, through you, Mayor, these are just regulatory in nature. Section 11 and Schedule 22 reports have to be received by council each year for the previous operating year. I just want to commend staff on achieving 100% compliance and also a full reaccreditation audit.
100% just doesn't seem to cut it, does it? I think it's a tremendous testament to staff and to the municipality of continuing to reach these absolute levels of excellence. So I hope you'll indulge me in asking a very small question. And that was, I was just wondering about the one minor opportunity for improvement in the April 2024 surveillance system audit, if that could just be clarified.
Yeah, I believe it was just very administrative in nature. I think it was just a wording kind of within that policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Often those audits pick up very minute details.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful just to have that clarification. So any other questions or comments from around the table? Wonderful. So the recommended motion is in front of us is to receive the report. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to a good news report, another good news report, 4.5, report PS 0225, re-office of the Fire Marshal Fire Protection Grant. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before council considers their report?
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. In 2024, the Ontario government launched a fire protection grant. It's the first year of a 3-year program, which will invest $30 million in relation to firefighter health and safety throughout the province of Ontario. In January of 2025, Port Hope Fire and Emergency Services received just under $25,000 to assist in the purchase of personal protective equipment that will further facilitate the cancer prevention program we have in place for Port Hope Fire. I'm very excited to see the investment in the health and safety of our members, and we've already placed the order for some of the equipment that's going to assist with this initiative. So I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you for that and congratulations.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none. The recommended motion is to receive this for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 4.6, report PS 0325, re-municipal maintenance bylaw. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before council considers the report?
Madam Mayor, through you to council. So basically, this is a bylaw that will hopefully repeal our current snow and ice bylaw that was created back in 1997 and doesn't really have legal standing right now to be able to be enforced. Public works staff and enforcement staff have been doing our best to bring the municipality into compliance, but we haven't had anything to be able to do that with except for going out and asking very nicely. And sometimes that doesn't work. So our works and engineering staff have had to go out and shovel sidewalks with no cost recovery in place and costing the municipality money as far as that way. There's also major concerns over slip and fall for those people that don't comply with the current or the standing bylaw that isn't necessarily legal. But we decided to bring this up in a hurry as we received increased complaints this year. Totaling 40 since we've gotten more snow than normal these years. So this was something that the Director of Works and Engineering and myself talked about along with the Director of Protection Services as something that we needed to bring forth quickly. That's why it's here now. As we thought about it, we decided to add the boulevard and tree protections into it, as we figured it is municipal property that's abutting private property and private lots. So we wanted to make sure that our municipal trees were looked after, because driving around you can see that some people like to put things around trees which are not best for it, or pave or interlock their boulevards to add in for parking spaces, which can kill the roots and trees and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure we had provisions in place in order to protect those, as well as maintenance for our boulevards to keep the beautification of the town and the municipality all in one. So if anybody has any questions, any of council, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from around the table? Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much. Could you maybe just give us an overview as to what would be the primary differences between the old bylaw and this bylaw, and how it's going to help in enforcement and reduce our risks?
I had been turned off. The changes, we've extended snow clearing times from 10 a.m. to noon. That would be the major difference. As far as how it's going to be enforced, it'll be the exact same way. We're going to take an educational approach, as we haven't had an enforceable bylaw in quite some time. So as we go out and speak to residents, we're going to talk to them, find out why they're not clearing their sidewalks. Could it be an age? Could it be a health risk? Then we'll look at possibilities of aiding them and talking to Works and maybe getting an assistance program in place. We'll see what happens with that. But it's mainly education to get residents out there and cost recovery for staff that have to go out and clear sidewalks. And that's the only difference. Is there will be a cost recovery proponent. This does have a set or not set fine, but a fine schedule in the offenses section that specifies a $300 fine for the first offense. It is going to be an extensive violation process for you to go that far. Generally the first 2 times we'll come out and we'll talk to you and we'll discover whether it's health related or anything like that to stop before we end up moving anything into the courts. Besides, we'll establish set fines that are much lower than what it specifies in the bylaw.
Do you have a follow-up? I have a question. Do we have any data that shows the trends in terms of slips and falls over a number of years, and where we're trending in that regard? And that's the first question. The second question is, in terms of setting up a system where you're saying that you may want to investigate why some folks are having difficulties clearing snow or sidewalks, etc., and that would have to figure out a cost recovery for municipal staff to be doing some of that work, if that would be required. Has there been any consideration to creating a volunteer roster in the community that could step in and help with some of this? Because I know that already happens informally, and whether or not there could be just a more of a call out for some of that for some of the residents that may be having difficulties?
I would love to see a high school program for something like this. I remember as a kid growing up, that was the best way to go around and make $5 or $10 was going around and helping out those in the neighborhood, something like that. But as far as data for slips and falls, I believe we've had 2. I'll let Jeanette speak to.
With respect to lawsuits, there have been 2 for slip, trips, and falls related to winter maintenance since I've become the director.
I've got the deputy mayor, and then I've got Councillor Clare.
Thank you. So I don't know if I'm the person who should be speaking to this, but I know from before my time on accessibility committee is that they tried to have a Snow Angels program for driveways, and there wasn't volunteers. That doesn't mean that we can't explore that again. Just this conversation we're having right now, I'm just thinking accessibility from both points, from people needing the driveway sidewalks cleared for accessibility, but also those who can't clear it because they have an accessibility need. So I don't know if this is something that maybe we I don't know procedurally if it's the will of council to also refer anything, maybe not today, but at some point to that committee to explore. Again, because it's been a while, I think. I don't know, Director, can you speak to
that? Through the Accessibility Advisory Committee, there was a Snow Angels program developed a number of years ago. I want to say 5 years ago. Unfortunately, it failed miserably. There was a lot of people that were interested in participating in the program, as in looking for services. There was not anyone that signed up willing to volunteer to assist.
But Councillor Mink, to your point, Deputy Mayor, just because it died doesn't mean that maybe we can't try it again and see if there's, especially as this is happening, and we do know that we're getting more snow and ice. And having slipped and fallen myself this year, I know that this is a real issue in our community, and we want it to be safe. So maybe it's worth trying again.
Possibly thinking, Madam Mayor, to refer to the Youth Advisory Committee as well to see if you can get some of the youth out there to help.
And back to your suggestion about the high school, we've got 2 high schools in the area, and that could be brought to them as well, and see whether or not they would want to have some of their volunteer hours as part of such a program. So I think some great ideas on the table. Thank you for that. Any other? Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I just picking up on the discussion around slips and falls. I think just always also really important to remember that we can only measure the risk and the injuries and that are taking place by people who are choosing to brave those conditions. And I think one of the things that's so hard to measure, but probably even more important, are all the people who are not taking to the streets because the sidewalks aren't clear. You know, all it takes is one person on one block, and that entire street then becomes, a danger for anyone who's out there on foot. And so a lot of people are staying home. I remember feeling very isolated when I was a mom with little kids and I couldn't push a stroller around because of snowy sidewalks, and you're sort of stuck at home. So it's the unmeasurable impact on residents as well that we need to consider.
Thank you for that. And finally, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, my final thought on this, and I fully agree that we need to be clearing the sidewalks, and there's hazards there. And I'll be curious, we have 2 lawsuits, but I would be curious as to how many went through insurance, and we don't have as lawsuits, so we know how many slip and falls and what the cost is associated with that. One of my only concerns is residents who are incapable of clearing their snow, whether that's through age, whether that's through physical and mental capacity. And you've already mentioned, Dave, that there will be conversations with these people and see how we can help and support. And so I'll be curious to see how that proceeds as we unfold this.
Thank you for that great Oh, yes, Councillor Darrell.
My question is maybe for Director Davidson. Because I've been asked this question, how do we determine which sidewalks are plowed by the municipality versus the homeowner?
So through the chair, we do have an interactive map on our website that shows what sidewalks are municipally maintained. They're generally the arterial roads, so Peter Street, Toronto Road, the commercial areas are what we look after now.
Thank you for that. Any final questions, comments? Okay, so the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to our last report, 4.7, Report WE 0225, Northumberland County Broadband Project. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before council considers this report?
So through the chair, high-speed internet connectivity is a fundamental to thriving and inclusive community. Northumberland County has prioritized closing broadband gaps across the region to the over 11,000 homes and businesses that are either unserved or underserved within the county. Many rural areas face unique challenges due to the complex infrastructure requirements, hilly terrain, and dispersed populations. Northumberland County is advancing a fiber to the home broadband network initiative through a public-private partnership model, combining public funding with private investment to deliver reliable internet services with speeds of at least 1 gigabit per second. This initiative is supported by funding from the Federal Universal Broadband Fund and the Provincial Improving Connectivity for Ontario program with no cost to the rural ratepayer. We were advised of an administrative update after the agenda had been posted requesting the change to name of Windsor Capital to Northumberland Broadband. So the agreement has been updated to reflect this change, but the report has not. The report still references Windsor Capital, but it is Northumberland Broadband. There are also 2 staff members from the county in the audience to be able to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. And we really do appreciate county staff being with us this evening. And maybe I'd like to just invite you up to the podium and introduce yourselves, because there will be questions, and you might as well be at the mic to be able to facilitate the conversation here. So, any questions or comments from, yes, Councillor Les?
Before I hit you with the barrage of questions, I don't expect all the answers right now. Okay, so my questions are, who is the private sector partner? What experience do they have? What references can we check to see how reliable their prior networks are? What about after sales service? I'd like to know who I'm dealing with before I get into approving anything. What are the costs going to be after the service is provided and the user hooks up to the service? I know there's going to be a charge, and how will that revenue be split between the municipality, the county, and the service provider? So those are just some of the questions I have about why are we trying to rush this through.
All right.
Can I just ask you for an introduction?
Certainly. My name is Dan Borowick. I am attached to this project. I'm the former Director of Strategic Initiatives for the County of Northumberland, and have been engaged in this project for the last 5 years since inception. And maybe Councillor Les, if I can give you some context before I get to the specifics. Maybe before I start, I should let Scott introduce himself as well.
Scott Berry with the county. I'm helping support this project on the communications ends, which will be a critical key a part of the success of this project. So, thank you.
So maybe just to try and put this project in some sort of framework. This is a very unique type of a project going forward. We had envisaged broadband as a utility, much like hydro or water or any other piece of infrastructure. And in doing so, we did a couple of things. The first thing we did was we reacted to a digital strategy that was presented to County Council, which outlined how becoming intelligent Northumberland, or having the digital capacity to move forward in today's world, would impact Northumberland, and that was great. Except if you don't have the infrastructure to do that, it's not going to happen. And so the work we've been engaged in over the course of these X number of years has been first to determine how much actual internet capacity exists in Northumberland. We did do a gap analysis study, so we determined what we have in order to then know what we needed to ask for. And there's a significant amount of fiber in Northumberland. There's also a significant amount of dark fiber. Dark fiber is fiber that's in place that's not being utilized. And so, and the primary reason it's not being utilized is the major telecoms, Bell, Rogers, Cogeco, do not light that fiber up until there's sufficient revenue to be generated from X number of households. And the current dollar amount for Bell, Rogers, etc., is that if they can't get fiber to the home for an amount of about $1,600, then they will not do it. And in a rural context, that's not doable. It's not a reality. It's great if you have a high concentration and you have density and you have exponential growth in subdivisions. It all then fits their business model. This entire project was designed to try to support rural in a way that could provide residents with opportunities for ease of access to healthcare, education, the Internet of Things in a reliable format by having actual fiber go to the household. So on that premise, we went forward. Once we determined what was needed, we went forward and we asked for money. And funding came from two sources that have been approved and had to be amended because over the course of time, other companies had contracts in place with the federal or provincial government to provide internet service. In the end, or at this point in time, and I guess this hopefully is the end, we have about $63 million of federal and provincial funding for this project. That amount of money has been matched by a private sector partner. You've asked about the private sector partner and wanting to know who you're going into business with. We are not a couple of things. We've signed NDAs with those negotiations, and those negotiations have been going on for the last 14 months. We were at a point where our private sector partner is looking at commencing this project with shovels in the ground by March 1st. So there are activities that are with there's dialogue between everybody's lawyer known to person kind to make this work. Here's what I can tell you about our private sector partner. They are Ontario-based. They are one of the 9 approved advanced high-speed internet provider services that have been approved by the provincial government. They do have they have an ISP, and that ISP is fully operational and is located in various areas throughout southwestern Ontario at this point in time. They have both the capacity and the financial resources to do this project. There's a significant degree of due diligence that has been involved in this process, and they have been thoroughly vetted by both the province and the federal government. And over the course of time, we have reviewed endlessly the existing households who are either unserved or underserved throughout Northumberland to ensure that we are not replicating services or that we are not using taxpayers' dollars to provide a service that's already in place. So it's been an extensive process. And maybe Councillor Les, to your earlier comment about not wanting to engage in some sort of amalgamation, my life is not that long either to try and make this project work. And so the intent here is to utilize the services provided by our private sector company, who are now using a design build firm known as New Build. You may have seen New Build's vans throughout the county because they have driven every road and have determined what will be required in order to provide that fiber to the home. There is a significant degree of operational gear up that is going on right now. One of the questions that were asked that staff came forward with is, what's the rush? Well, the Premier's mandate is that this needs to be done by December 31st, 2025. And the phrase was promise made, promise delivered. And so there is a sense of urgency to get this done. Our private sector partner has enough resources and crews to make this happen. With respect to the municipality of Port Hope, of the 11,000 households that need to be served, there are 571 households which need to be served in Ward 2. So the amount of activity directed towards Ward 2 is not as significant as the amount of activity that's going to take place in other areas of Northumberland. And as the project launches, the framework for this is not to build the entire network and light it up, but light it up as it goes, so that certain areas will be lit up sooner than others as the crews move around. Essentially, what we're looking for here is council's approval for a municipal access agreement, in order that we may start completing the design and not overburden the municipality with X number of right-of-way agreements coming in all at once, but rather the expertise with new build and what they're about to do. They have a tendency to build X amount over X days, and as they start building X amount, they will submit a further right-of-way agreement or permission, so that it can be clarified by the local municipality to then continue to move forward. The fiber to the home is done through a plowing process. The plowing process is about this wide, and it's 1.2 meters deep. Integral to this is knowing where all the locates are and knowing where everything else is in the ground, and meeting the conditions that have been set by each and every one of the individual municipalities to ensure that we're in compliance with their bylaws, rules, and regulations. So it is plowing. There is also directional drilling. So directional drilling allows you to not have to dig up a culvert or upset a driveway, but rather use directional drilling to ensure that that can be done without disruption to the homeowner. The final alternative is aerial, and that is done on poles, utility poles. One of the residents asked whether or not that meant was utility pole a word for tower. It is not. There are some areas in the county where the most effective way of getting fiber to the home is to utilize existing hydro poles. The province has done an exceptionally good job of legislating an agreement with Hydro One and Ontario Hydro to say that these poles will be used in our lifetime. And so this has taken a long time to do because there's an awful lot of moving parts. It is not only complicated, but it is complex. There are areas that have a high degree of ambiguity, and in order to make this work, we are relying on a collaborative and a cooperative arrangement and partnership with all municipalities in Northumberland and Alderville First Nation to make this go forward. To date, we have signed agreements with both Trent Hills and Hamilton Township. We are speaking with Alnwick Haldeman and Crammy on Tuesday, and we are here before you this evening. There's no cost to the resident for this. The way this works is they will bring fiber to the home. You do not have to hook up if you do not want to. If you are happy with an alternative source for your internet services, whether it's Bell or Rogers or Nexicom, that's fine. But at a time when maybe there, over the course of the next X number of years, where there will be transformational change probably in all of Northumberland, the fact that there is now fiber available for supporting either home businesses or multiple businesses or the agricultural community at the drop of a hat with consistent access and no disruption. This is a real opportunity. We deliberately did this in a way such that there would be no burden to the taxpayer, and that's why took a little while to raise $124 million.
Thank you for that really detailed overview. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Lutz?
Yeah, and I thank you for that, Dan. And you know, like most of what you said resonates with me, and you're doing it for all the right reasons. But the two things that scare me are the NDA. We don't know who we're dealing with. And secondly, we don't know what the cost is going to be to the consumer. And you're right, they don't have to hook up. So it's a moot point.
I need a little flashing light that says turn this on if you're talking into it. Maybe I can answer the second one first. The agreements reflect the fact that the price has to be price competitive. So, and certainly there's recognition that there is no point in establishing this type of infrastructure and establishing a price point where there will not be a user group for it. So it is price competitive. The other thing that was the basis for this is that over time this will be open access. So think of it as train and track. At this point in time, there will be one ISP providing the service as it's laid in, because you need some form of continuity to make this happen. If you had multiple ISPs trying to do this all at once, the consumer would be overwhelmed. You know, and more importantly, the consumer would say, "Which one of you guys are telling the truth?" And so, once established, there is legislation in place that allows for individual businesses who believe that they can then offer an improved ISP service to rent space on the infrastructure. So think of it as train and track. We're building track. You know, multiple trains will use this track over time. Undoubtedly, we will identify the ISP very shortly. As I said, we're in the final stages of signing off all the agreements. The lawyers are papering the agreements as I stand here now.
Follow up?
Sure.
With the ISP, yes, you're building the track, but the new ISP providers are going to have to rent or buy that availability off the people that installed that track. So,
but that's typical. I mean, Bell
And-
and Rogers
and
and everybody else has been forced.
is there a time period? Like, do they have rights for 5 years, 10 years?
Probably 3. Get a bell, like Pavlovian dog. I can't emphasize enough the fact that who we are dealing with is price pointed at a rate that makes them price competitive, and the fact that this is fiber to the home makes it non-disruptive. So weather's not going to affect this. It's there. So if it's healthcare, and if you start thinking about a more senior population, and you think about telemedicine, then that availability there is there at the drop of a hat, or whether it's education over the net, or on and on and on it goes. So
Thank you. And I'm going to just go around so everybody has a chance to comment or question. So Councillor Todd.
Great. Thanks, Dan, for the explanation. It clears up a lot of what I had. I've got just a couple of questions I wanted to ask. One is, who's going to oversee this project and be responsible to ensure its success, or is accountable for the errors that go on? I'll start there, but I have one after that.
So all the funding for this is back-end funding. So it's the federal and provincial funding is only released after a completion of X amount. So it's like a home construction loan. It's not handed over, but rather, the role of the county will be the verification and validation of what is being built, and the verification of any of the work or invoices that have been received for the work done. there are multiple Gantt schedules to indicate what will be done when, what equipment will be used, et cetera, et cetera. And that was part and parcel of the 10-month negotiation period with both the feds and the province to identify equipment and labor.
And outside of releasing the money, just the quality of the work, that goes hand in hand with that?
It does. So once the fiber is installed, it is not immediately lit up. There is a defined testing period to ensure that you are getting 1 gigabyte minimum to the home.
Right. And that also then, because I know there was some concern about natural wildlife and making sure that's so that quality check also is put in place before the money's released.
And just to speak to that, where we are going, there are already all that ground has already been disturbed. There's either a pole there or there's something in the ground there, and so and the aerial option is also one of the ways to overcome that sort of disturbance as well. So we're this is not a drive a bulldozer down the road and there are multiple checks and balances in this entire process.
Right.
And the last thing that this private sector group is looking at is not wanting to create ill will in community, but rather build goodwill in community by the processes they use.
Yeah, thank you. And my final question is, should this not go through, what happens next?
Well, I'll probably hang on a cross with high-speed fiber, the check has to hit the table, but the federal and provincial agreements are signed. So even with the election writ being dropped and with what will be no doubt a federal election soon, those agreements are signed. So the public sector funding is there. The private sector arrangement is, we're in the final stages of negotiation.
Councillor Clare. My question is probably for your colleague, but it's more about communication and that. And I know you've spoken to collaboration with lower tiers being really crucial, but I hope that extends as well to the community. I know that for our internal processes, this would be sort of a third step in a major public works project, at the very least, in terms of information flow at the council table, that we would generally receive information about the project as an FYI with some sort of statement around a public information center that would be hosted. And only once that had happened would we be receiving a report similar to we received today, where we'd be asked to approve the project. So I understand there's a tight timeline, but I don't think it was tight at the county. You've been on this for 5 years, you've mentioned. So I guess I'm surprised that it's coming to us without having had any prior information, or even the report would have been nice to have received. So I'm interested, now that we are where we are, we understand there's a month until they want to have shovels in the ground. I'd like to hear if there's any more specifics that can be shared around the plan for information rollout and communication with the public moving forward.
I certainly, and I'll ask Scott to speak to that, but just to speak to the time frame. The complexity of the project was such that we've had to do a couple of things. Our original partner for this decided that it was too complex for them to do, so we had to find a replacement, and we also had to go back for more money, and so that took a little while, and I can assure you a minister's reaction to more money is not usually something you want to see in public. However, maybe I'd like Scott to maybe speak to what is being planned and how this will work.
Through the mayor, great question. We have the same desire as you do. We really wish we were at a stage of providing greater, more fulsome communications. Unfortunately, there has been some constraints. While the project has been going on for quite some time, those discussions, as Dan spoke to, and the non-disclosure agreements have been really through closed sessions through council. We did through the agreements through the province and the federal government. We have certain stipulations and agreements around how we have to agree collaboratively and approved communications that go out. I think it's no surprise to everyone right now we are under an election writ. So that's one constraint that we're currently under. So we're facing a couple of constraints. We really wish we were in a position to be more fulsome at this point. I can assure you that we do have a plan. We have all of the things ready to go. And now as we're now reaching that stage of the actual implementation stage, this is a critical part of the project where we have to involve a lot of public communications with those 11,000 unserved and underserved residents. And we have a number of strategies to that, recognizing that also these are folks that don't have a lot of access to internet. So we've got a lot of tactics that will be deploying a lot of old school techniques of roadway signs and Canada Post mail drops. So we're ready to go, and we're just we're really excited waiting for Dan and the signals that we have, the provincial election behind us. So it's going to be very tight timed with the physical shovel in the ground. We'll have a lot of quick catch up to do, but we are ready to go. And we also plan to work with all our municipal partners on this project around hosting some of the picks that you talked about or information sessions, just an opportunity for them to ask the questions that have been asked here tonight. So we do have some work to help educate the people. How do they get hooked up? Is there a cost? All these questions that rose today. So we're prepared to do that. And we're just anxious to, when that time and opportunity comes and the constraints are no longer there, to be more fulsome in our communications.
Thank you for that. So I have just a couple of questions. One is, Dan, you had mentioned we're going around the table this way. Is that okay? Okay. Just in terms of, you said where we might start and where we might finish the project, and I'm wondering what part of the county would you be tackling first in terms of what you had outlined, or is that known yet?
It is. That had been. It was almost like it was set in jello. As soon as the temperature went up, the shape changed. But
some basic phasing.
Yes. All right.
So it is the Port Hope area that currently would be the first.
Yes. So it is Port Hope that is first up to bat for work to be done. There are about at last count they have about 14 crews that are ready to go. And so there are multiple start points, but Port Hope has been designated in their current design to be the first one. And then the areas north of Cobourg through up and through Alderville and McHaldeman and part of Hamilton Township. And so we do have the project construction zones identified and Scott, they're available in draft form at this point in time, so we can provide you that in draft form.
Thank you. And I just want to take you back to some of what you had explained in terms of the context of this project. And in terms of getting to the point where we can even be contemplating this kind of equitable access to our rural residents of the county, how difficult is it to actually bring together all of the players that are required to even contemplate having the right ingredients to be able to be at this place? So I think that where I'm going with this is to ask if people in the general public think, oh, we could have the option of 10 different possibilities to get to this same place. What would you say to them in terms of just how difficult it has been to bring together what you need to even be contemplating moving forward in this direction for our community?
I think the road here certainly has been difficult. Not only the negotiation of the funding, but more importantly, to look at Northumberland and its seven member municipalities, as well as Alderville First Nation, and provide the acceptance of a vision that would suggest that this is the only way it can happen in terms of the county as a whole and its member municipalities having an opportunity that will not be done anywhere else in the province. There are other alternatives being offered out there, whether it's Starlink, and that's debatable after 30 days, and a couple of other methodologies, or a multitude of towers, et cetera, et cetera. When we put this together, and I think one of the reasons, or the reason that we obtained the funding, is we offered up a solution to suggest that we could bring an entire county under one umbrella and provide the necessary infrastructure for all of its residents to have access to this type of technology. How the individual municipality treats that is of their own choice and decision. It's not so much from our perspective, from a county perspective. This isn't an ownership thing. This was an alternative to try and get it done, because we also recognize that there are certain costs associated with some of the outlying areas that would never ever receive this type of service, ever.
Thank you. And I just to follow up one last question that that Councillor Clare had mentioned about communications. I'm wondering if you could just clarify for the public how many times over the course of 5 years there was any communication from the county talking about a project that was trying to provide equitable access to broadband for Northumberland County.
In broad terms, many times the negotiations could never be made public, but the whole idea of creating Intelligent Northumberland, in fact, when we received the provincial funding, an official announcement took place in Codrington to announce the launch and the funding by the provincial government to make this project go forward. When we got into beyond that, however, when we got into the nitty-gritty of what was going to be required with our initial partner to make this work, it wasn't a good deal for Northumberland, and ultimately we had to seek another partner. So on a daily basis, there's ongoing asks as to when this project was going to be completed and when their high speed was coming.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So first, thank you for coming tonight. And I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. I know we've been here for a long time, but I am a rural councillor and a rural property owner, and as well as Councillor Tom here. So in 2018, this was the beginning of this was the key thing in my election message, was rural broadband. In the very early days with Mayor Sanderson at the time, I worked very closely with him, saying, let's go to the county and urge them to come up with a plan and a strategy. And I did a lot of research. So I am very much, and he did, and I'm grateful for that. So throughout all this period, I have engaged the community to take the speed tests and so on. So I'm very engaged with this. I live in a valley land. I have no internet. It's as well as my neighbor. We're in a dead zone. So this is something that I want very much, and I want to make that very clear. But then as a rural property owner, I have a ton of questions for my own property. And it makes me, as the rural representative, I know I have a lot of questions coming to me. So to Councillor Clare's question is, we spoke about customer service, but do you have a customer service strategy on the ground ready to go right now? Because I'm already getting questions that I cannot answer. Do we have that set up today, tomorrow?
The short answer would be we have the framework. We have the private sector partner has their own communication firm and their own customer service representatives, and we have been working closely with them. So as soon as we finalize our agreement, that will begin. We've had extensive conversations about how to manipulate the communication embargo from a public sector perspective, and maybe one of the ways of that is just community engagement, because we need a community forum to gather people in one spot and address just the kind of questions you're talking about. And certainly that's the framework we're using with Alderville First Nation. So we're trying to check off every box as we go. But I certainly appreciate the reminder that it's a priority.
Okay, thank you. So I do have a few more follow-up questions.
By all means, and we're not trying to create work for you.
Well, I know, and that's what I'm.
Yeah.
Because I have a number of questions about my own property, for example, and just for just so everybody understands the question. So I have, my property has 2 road frontages, Forest Road, and you say that it's not the fiber is not going to go anywhere where anything isn't already laid. Is that across the board, or will it be potentially coming onto property such as mine where it is a forest road? You need to now access my property, not to run to my property, but to run the line. Will there be those scenarios out there? Can you guarantee that? And how are we going to handle those?
This is where I hoped I could be an engineer. So, that type of that's one of the reasons for having the public forums and the specific questions directed towards new build, who are very much aware of that and have solutions in place for that, to make it work. In their other areas where they have already put fiber into place, those kinds of considerations have been made, and they do have a plan. So it won't be willy-nilly. It'll have to be, in some cases, done on an individual basis. There's also a recognition that, in order to get from here to there, we might have to run a line that already has a Bell fiber running there. So both Fed and Prov recognize that if Bell isn't going to do it, and we will.
Thank you. And that was one of my questions. So where there is dark wire right now, it will be competing with that, or will it bypass those sections? Or
We have to run in parallel with it. The fact that there's dark fiber and they won't light it up is one of the reasons that we have been successful in getting the funding we have in order to provide the service.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, so a few more. Just going with signing up. So it's a very aggressive plan. You said Port Hope is first. When I get a question tomorrow, I don't know who to go to, right? So when the providers come out and you're coming up to our homes without a plan or a schedule, or I've seen nothing at this point, I have no information to pass on. How do you coordinate people's lives? People are under a lot of stress and pressure right now. I can't sign up. I'm locked into a contract. I won't be home. I'm on vacation. How do I know when you're coming? How is this being communicated to the public? Where is that opportunity for those questions?
The current plan is that once the construction of the fiber starts taking place, there will be a sales team that will follow that. But there's also extensive plans to provide information concerning service plans, how to sign up for the service, excuse me, and how to subscribe. We're as anxious as everyone else to have the final negotiation completed so that we can start making this offering to the public. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. We're ready.
Yeah. Just talk, if I may, just through the mayor, just briefly around the process. And it's important to remember that we're not the internet provider. So one of the things we're working with in our private sector folk is to delineate who's the relationship owner of what information. So a big part of our job, now that we're soon to the stage of the implementation, soon we'll be able to start to communicate that. What does that look like? So if we're coming to Ward 2, for example, there'll be the mail drop, there'll be the sign. So you know that they're coming in 2 weeks. We'll have an interactive map on the website that'll be updated every 2 weeks as we progress through this project. So you'll be able to track and see where we are. Okay, I'm coming to your neighborhood, I'm coming to my friend down the road. And then they're actually coming out physically putting door knockers on your door as well. They have to have that interchange with each rural resident to sign a consent form if you wish to be physically connected to the backbone of the track that Dan's spoken to. That's sort of the first sort of transactional engagement, if you will. As Dan said, they'll continue to build in that area, and once they've tested it, confirmed down to weeks, then it switches over to our ISP provider, which would be typical of the kind of retail marketing you'd see from a consumer standpoint. They have a call center, they have a 1-800 number. They too will then, as Dan said, send their team out, putting door knockers. If you're not there, if you're working, how do we get a hold of you? 1-800 numbers to call. So there'll be multiple ways in which residents will not have sort of this one opportunity that they might miss out on, that we're really working on extensive communications with a lot of sort of soak time and timing it so people know when they need to be available or when they can get the services they want. I don't know if that answers
Thank you.
your question.
Yeah, it does. I am still very apprehensive because as the point of contact for the community, I need to make sure that I can direct people to get the answers and that they will get them. So just two last questions. Is there any, you say there's no cost to the residents, rural residents. Will there be a cost to Port Hope? Will you need municipal resources at all to facilitate this project?
Maybe I'll turn to Jeanette on this. There will be, we have a number for how many applications that are determining might come forward.
Through the mayor. We're going to rely very heavily on municipal staff. So while there isn't a cost, there's some in-house resources that we really rely on and are critical for our partnership and success of this project. And one of them is what Dan spoke around the municipal consent. So I'll let your staff speak more authoritatively about that. So we've already started to help have information centers. We brought all of our municipal, your staff together in training sessions. We'll also be working on some training sessions for your MIN, for inbound calls to help redirect those. But a big part of the work and the support that we need is the assistance working with New Build in processing through the municipal consents. For Port Hope, I did have the number here. As Dan said, there's roughly around 1,125 kilometers of cable, and then we chunk those into individual municipal consents and in bundles of maybe 8 to 15 kilometers. And for Port Hope, not a large number, 18 out of approximately 210, 225 odd municipal consent forms. So not a large work, but still an impact to
And I'm going to just turn it over to the director.
So we do have updated numbers. We're looking at about 22 MCs or municipal consents, which is the process that Northumberland Networks LP would follow. So they would submit for municipal consent to do the cable work. It would be managed by our engineering department. So there would be a desktop review as well as a field review to review the area, and then they would submit the approval back to the proponent, and as part of that, they would also submit a road occupancy permit, and the road occupancy permit is specific to each work location. So the road occupancy permits would be issued as work progresses, so that way we would be ensuring that the work is being done to our standards and that it is being corrected, or any deficiencies are being corrected prior to releasing additional road occupancy permits. And we have received about 15 municipal consents already, and I understand that there's 22 that are going to be coming, and we are holding them until after this meeting.
Thank you. And so one other question is the environmental component of it that you did speak to. But in the event, so we have some, I'm not sure if you're aware, but up in Oak Hill Road, there was the tower. We have a lot of people that are very sensitive to environmental impacts. We have natural designated roadside areas. There's a lot of passion there. Some of this, obviously, we have nesting seasons, things like that. What happens if somebody does not give consent to go on their property because of an environmental season, whatever? There's a holdup. I've heard of other cases where there's a holdup for some reason because of an environmental factor. How is that managed? Are you anticipating that anywhere, and do you have a plan for that? The last question: has the GRCA been involved in any of this as well, or is there a need for them?
We've had conversations with both the province and the feds on this matter. The need for an environmental impact study is not part of the process, primarily because it's viewed as disturbed. However, our provider is exceptionally sensitive to the needs of the individual constituent, and would look to a solution, not an arbitrary no, but how to make it work, and recognize that if we're going down a road and we don't get property owner consent to go on that property, they recognize that they'll have to find an alternative.
Sorry, I wasn't mentioning for their own hookup. I was mentioning if you have to pass through private property to get to the next area.
Yeah, those there are, they do have a solution in mind.
Thank you. And this is part of my, like, if we had more time, these discussions could take place. And I appreciate the Premier's promise of 2025, but I think I want our councillors here to realize that we have PHAI, and we try to work with the property owners to make sure that they're accommodated as much as possible. Well, I just want to make sure that we're very considerate of the rural residents at the same time, that yes, we want this, but I'm here to look after my immediate neighbors and community, and I respect the campaign of the Premier, but my priority is my local community. So I just want to make sure that we're doing everything right.
Well, and you know, the success of a healthy community is not just or a vibrant community is just not economic. It's all component parts, whether it's social or health or environmental. And you know, that's one of the reasons we chose the partner that we do have to make this work. We may need a little grace to find out what the solution is going to be, but we'll you know, apparently that's why I'm here. Because and that's why the county is so heavily involved, because I think our real role here, in addition to finding the funding, is to also be the facilitator to ensure that the best interests of all residents are served.
Some of my questions. I do have one more thing to say, but I'll let my other councillor here go.
Councillor Gerald.
Hey, there's not much left to say. I echo everything that all the other councillors have said. I guess my comments would be, I just think it's a lot of moving parts, and it's almost like we're being asked to sign a blank agreement with no form of reference on if the job can be abandoned or if we have reputable people installing it. Coming from a Ward 2 resident perspective, I haven't seen any engagement on this or anybody at my door talking to me about it. And knowing Ward 2 residents the way I do, I don't think it will be well received if you have an internet service provider at the door selling a service when the guy with the shovel is standing at the end of the driveway. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I recognize the sensitivities, and we're doing everything we can to make the provider aware of not creating a situation that will diminish the success of the project.
Thanks.
Any other further comments or questions? Dan, I do want to thank you, both of you, and Scott for coming in this evening. I think the kind of exchange we've had and the additional information has been helpful for all of us to be able to be more effective points of contact and information for the community that we all represent, whether we are Ward 2 or Ward 1 councillors or the mayor. I think we all have a vested interest in making sure that this project goes well, and that, you know, we are committed to EDI here in the community, and that does include equitable access to all the benefits of broadband and high-speed internet. And so we really appreciate you coming in and spending the time to answer some of these very important questions and concerns from around the table.
If I could just add one more thing to the, you know, as I said, it is complex and it is complicated, and there's a lot of ambiguity, and there are a lot of good folks doing a lot of good things, but we're all human, you know, and it's to try and make a project of this size and scope work. It's taken a great deal of effort, and it's also taken a great deal of effort to build trust and relationship, especially with our private sector partner who is looking at us saying, well, you know, this isn't just about the money, it's about our reputation and what we can bring to community. And so the support that you provide is and the support and the commentary and the that you provide is essential. And all I would say is just keep asking, and we'll keep doing.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So I don't have a question for you. I just more discussion amongst my council. Claire, Councillor Claire, you had mentioned a PIC, which I'm of interest in. I'm torn because this is, of course, something I want, and you say shovels ready in a couple of weeks. Yet this council has continuously communicated transparency and information, and I don't see how this can get out to the community. I just don't see the timeline in front of me of how this can work and get the buy-in from the community seamlessly, that we're not going to have more pressure on people. I think we need an opportunity to put this out socially, advertise it to the community before we sign something. My suggestion, and of course I'm up for modification, I'm not saying no. I don't want to sit here today and have a vote of yes or no. I don't feel that's the right thing. But so I would like to put a motion on the table that report WE-02-25 be referred back to staff for more information regarding community engagement, timelines, and impact to residents, and that a staff be directed to report back to council by March 16th, 2025, which is the next council meeting. And we could go, I believe it is, and we could go straight to council at that time, which gives us a window of engagement for the community. The next council meeting, if you could check that date.
I would like to sort of, I think the clerk's going to take that on as a, and we'll see if we can get a seconder for that motion. We've got Councillor Les seconding what may be coming up.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So Madam Deputy Mayor has put a motion on the floor, which has been seconded by Councillor Les, and the motion is as follows: that report WE-02-25 be referred back to staff for more information regarding community engagement, timelines, and impact to residents, and that staff be directed to report back to council by March 18th, 2025, which is the next council meeting. Is that accurate, Madam?
That is accurate, and I know Councillor Claire mentioned something about a PIC or whatever, but I don't know if it wants to be amended by anybody, but that's my starting point. Yes.
Okay. So we have a mover and seconder for that motion. I would just like to ask some questions around what exactly are you looking for in terms of those components of the motion, just so we can really clearly drill down into what it is specifically that you're looking for? And when you say report back to that it's staff, are you asking staff to coordinate with county staff? What are the components that you feel that are, say, required or missing, or that need to be satisfied from your perspective, just so that we can be as clear and detailed as possible?
Thank you. So I would like to know, what is the community engagement process? What's the opportunity for the questions? Where, basically, yeah, how can they ask about the schedule, the timeline, answer the questions that will come to us? What is that? Where's the timelines, and what could potentially be the impact to residents? So I'll give you an example. I told this to my mom, that this is coming, and her immediate response was something that nobody wants to hear. Very upset. I don't know. I couldn't answer questions to her. So this is the environment right now. As much as people want the internet, people are in a very fragile state. And we need to make sure that they are very comfortable, that they are engaged, that they are aware that all of a sudden they don't just see something coming down the road, like we saw up at Oak Hill Road with the cell tower. They need to know what is coming. And I think we deserve, I don't know what the answer is. This is coming to me. I read about it on Friday. So I really don't know how we go about this, but we need to get the word out there to the community and not cause upset. We need them to be happy about this.
I know that Councillor Clare wants to, I'm going to go to Councillor Clare, and then I note that Scott, you'd like to weigh in as well on this, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just, for clarification around the next council meeting, is that not February? I think, do we not have one on February 18th? That would still be in time for. Got it.
Madam, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Holloway Wadwani, you are correct. The next council meeting is February 18th. Madam Deputy Mayor had indicated the March 16th date, and that was it was actually March 18th. That is the council meeting in March, which is why I had provided that date.
Yeah. Did you mean the next?
No, because the next council meeting would be normal process. So I'm saying give that window of time for residents.
My other question was, I'm wondering sort of whether either of you would be able to comment if normally this would come back to council in 2 weeks' time. Do you have a sense whether some of the information that you've alluded to this evening could be in more tangible form, a more tangible format to be shared back in advance of the meeting 2 weeks from today?
Thank you. It's been really insightful tonight to hear some of the concerns. And given that Port Hope is sort of first out the chute, I think there may be an opportunity to meet with staff to share our plans and have Ward 2 representatives to understand your unique issues. Let's talk about what those information sessions look like, because I could really gain some learning from that, for some robust discussions to have those kind of two-way discussions to really seek your input to review our plans, our strategies, see if there's gaps or things that we can fill that satisfies your notion of your constituents. Think, yeah, I think this will work. Let's road test it, get it out there, have the information sessions, because you are sort of first in the schedule. I'd really benefit from that. The county would too, in those learnings, because I then have to replicate and apply those to 6 other, well, actually 9 groupings as we go through over the course of the year. I think that'd be a real great benefit, and use that as an opportunity for us to sort of dialogue and share and tabletop and go through it. And we can do that right away. I'm concerned around timing is that we are waiting for the election, and we're just anxious to be ready to go with all these assets and communications. So a nice review process or a workshop with who you'd like at the table would really help advance us and accelerate our ability so that we are really ready in 3 weeks' time when we can sort of open the gates. I just offer that as a collaborative opportunity to help assist us and hopefully assist your residents. Sorry, Dan, did you?
The only trying to accommodate every possibility here, and we too have to be accommodated, because I think from our private sector partners' perspective, they are under a great deal of pressure to get going. And we will do whatever is necessary. We may be able to get more content in the framework for engagement by the February 18th meeting, because time is of the essence for us as well. It may not fulfill all requirements, but it will certainly be an improvement over what we've put forward today. And I think that's a good first step. And I think Scott has some exceptional ideas on how to try and get community and groups together. I mean, this is recognize too that this isn't the only difference between this one and a Bell initiative or a Nexicom initiative or a Rogers initiative is that the county has put itself in a position to be in control of the situation, so that the entire county as a whole can benefit. If you were dealing with Rogers right now or Bell, would you be going through the same process? I don't know. But the reality of this one is what we're trying to deliver is the opportunity to have access to fiber to the home. That's our whole role here. And I'll leave it at that.
I just have one follow-up question in terms of just the things that the Deputy Mayor has mentioned and asked for in this motion. How quickly could you actually start actioning some of these types of items? Is there anything that could be possibly accomplished between, say, now and February 18th? What is a realistic timeline if there is a balancing of needs here? Because on one hand, we have the community needs. On the other hand, we understand the very precarious nature of this 5-year project that has come together and is hanging by threads in some ways in terms of starting and making sure is ready to go. So how can we find that sort of sweet spot where we're trying to find a compromise between all of the different needs at the table?
I guess from my perspective, I need to have a conversation with the folks at New Build to determine what they can provide us, as well as our private sector partner, in terms of how this can work. That'll be tomorrow morning, and raise these issues, and then if we can have an open line of communication, we'll get on it. I mean, that's where we're at. We may not have everything by the 18th, but we'll have a lot more than we've had tonight. And I recognize the importance for your constituents, because all politics is local, and so and I can assure you, my role here is not to create grief for either of you. I'm trying to figure out a way not to create grief for either of you.
Yes, go ahead.
So thank you. And in the same, I'm not trying to stop the project in any way. Is there opportunity? So I would take up your offer. I'm absolutely happy to engage in any type of discussions, for sure. And I don't think you can answer this question now, but if there's an opportunity to potentially get some part of it starting, that if we come back on the 18th of February, if there's something that still needs to be held back or something else can move forward, potentially there's an option there. I just, like you said, local, like it feels like it's all falling on the local at this point at the crunch, and we need to figure that out.
I think I need a chip. Somebody else can turn it on from some other location. Yeah, I appreciate that position, and my job is to try and figure that out. But if we can get 60% of the way there by the 18th, that's 60% further than we are, and away we go. So if you might give, if you can do a little flexibility in that motion, I can get going.
Yes, the CEO would like to weigh in.
Thank you. Just going to, in terms of the discussion that's been taking place and looking to seek some clarification, again, because this isn't a Port Hope initiative, so it's not really a staff report to come back with regards to some of the questions that have been relayed. Again, it's a provincial and federal initiative supported by the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. It's not unique to this area. It's been encompassing and happening in several areas. It's already been completed for the most part in my previous county, in Hastings County. So I think in terms of the motion that's been moved and put forward, the report being referred back to staff perhaps could be directed that maybe we ask that the county attend as a delegation on the 18th to provide information around concerns related to what sort of has been addressed in terms of the communication piece and there's a better understanding in that regard, and perhaps that would give the county staff some time as well to see whether there's more information that can come forward to council at that time.
Councillor Less.
Yeah, there's no magic to this, okay? Because all we're asking for is, have they done this before and where? What are the costs going to be for the consumer? We want some idea, some credibility of the supplier. You know, like nobody would enter into a negotiation and sign a deal like this without some basic facts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess the essence of this deal is just access and the processing of the right-of-ways. It's not a financial commitment per se on the part of the municipality, but I understand your need to feel that you're comfortable in doing this because you want to know who you're doing it with. Okay. And unfortunately, until I have a sign back from our private sector partner, it makes that very difficult for me to provide that to you.
I'm sure when you tell them tomorrow morning that this is what we're asking for, you'll make reconsider.
I very much doubt it, given the nature of the negotiations to date and it's $128 million brings out the best and the worst in individuals.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so based on this discussion, so then and the offer that you made, so I would withdraw the motion. I'm fine with that, so that we can move forward. Given that we get together and have some discussions, and we'll see what happens, where we are on the 18th. I don't think we need to make a motion for that. We'll just see what happens by the 18th, and then we still have an opportunity to do whatever. But I would like to instead direct staff to invite the County of Northumberland to attend the February 18th, 2025 council meeting to provide a delegation to council regarding the details of the Northumberland County Broadband Project, including community engagement timelines and impact to residents. That way, our timeline of our agenda gives the community an opportunity to make delegations and ask questions, which doesn't have anything to do with the county or yourselves. It's sort of just our opportunity for that discussion.
Thank you for that. So I'm just going to check with the original seconder on that original motion. Do we need to consider the original motion first, or because the original mover is withdrawing,
Yes.
we have a new motion on the table, which the clerk just needs a second to
Yes.
finish.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So the mover has withdrawn the motion. She has added a further. It's not an amendment because the original motion is not being considered, but she has added a further line to the motion that was the recommended motion on the agenda. So what I can do is I can provide you with that wording. If you can just give me one moment, please. So one thing I do want to state is that a quick administrative change to the recommended motion that is on the agenda, as per the Director of Works and Engineering, she stated that it is no longer Windsor Capital. It is now the Northumberland Networks LP. So we have changed that in the motion that is there. So the full motion as it stands would read as follows: that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute the municipal access agreement as per attachment 1 with Northumberland Networks LP for the purpose of constructing and operating a broadband network in the rural area of the municipality of Port Hope as per the terms outlined in report WE 0225. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any amendments or other documents as may be necessary to facilitate the agreement, subject to the satisfaction of municipal staff and legal counsel. And further, that the County of Northumberland staff attend the February 18th, 2025 council meeting in order to provide a delegation to council regarding the details of the Northumberland County Broadband Project, including community engagement, timelines, and impact to residents. I note that if this motion is passed at Committee of the Whole today, the final disposition will take place at the council meeting of February 18th, and we do need a mover and seconder of this motion.
Okay, so does that reflect the Deputy Mayor's motion? Yes, and can we get a seconded by Councillor Les? Any further discussion? I would just like to add that I would like to see if that delegation could report on what you're going to do between now and February 18th in terms of addressing these concerns and starting the motion of community engagement, not that you'll just come and talk about the plans on the 18th for what's going to happen. So we'll be looking for a fulsome report on some of the initiatives that have been undertaken as well. Any further comments or questions? Okay, so that we've got a motion that's moved and seconded. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you very much for the discussion. And at this point, we're going to take a break. Okay, I think that was a good stretch after a very robust discussion at the table. So we're going to move on to item number 5. There are currently no notices of motion on the agenda tonight. We'll move on to item number 6, updates and new business. Black History Month and the Pan-African flag raising. On Monday, we held a special Pan-African flag raising ceremony to mark Black History Month. My fellow council members and I were joined by staff and members of the community at the front of Town Hall to reflect and recognize the significant contributions of Black Canadians, both historically and in our community today. The Pan-African flag symbolizes unity and pride, and its rising is a meaningful reminder of our ongoing commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We encourage everyone to take part in events and activities happening throughout Black History Month to learn, celebrate, and support Black culture and history. Let's continue to foster a community where everyone feels seen, heard, valued, and welcomed. Second item, the provincial election has been called. I'm sure most of you know that Premier Ford announced a snap election that will take place on February 27th. The 2022 election only saw about 43.5% of eligible voters coming out to vote. So I would encourage everyone to take the time to do their research and cast their ballots. Make sure that you ask all of your candidates about their feelings about the current fiscal framework that's in place, dividing money between the federal government, the province, and the municipalities. It's a very important question. I would say arguably there is no level of government that has as much influence on municipal governments in the province. So please do visit Elections Ontario website for more details. Moving on to the next update, which is the AI events taking place this week. And I'm going to turn this over to Councillor Todd to give a little bit of an update, and I'd be happy to support you in that update as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got two really great events that are coming up. One is Thursday evening from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Capitol Theatre. This is What is AI Anyways? And this event starts off with a TED Talk about what AI is, and it really gives an opportunity. There's a panel of experts who will talk about, in general terms, what AI is, what it isn't, what are the risks, what aren't the risks, and a wonderful opportunity for community members to come out and ask questions about AI, dispel some of those myths, but also get an understanding of what is at risk and what do we need to know about this. Tickets are available through the Capitol Theatre box office. $20 gets you a seat, and if you're 25 or under, it is complimentary. Following that, we are doing a full day on Friday, which is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., again at the Capitol Theatre. This event is certainly geared more towards local government and how AI is already being integrated into local government to help residents live better lives, find better efficiencies. Again, we've got a wonderful panel that's going to be there to speak. We are also being joined virtually by folks in local government from coast to coast who will be giving real examples of how local government is already using AI to do things like predict forest fires, reduce homelessness, to work on roads and making sure that we know when roads need to be repaired. So although this one has a tendency to be probably more geared towards municipal staff or elected officials, what I would say is for residents who are interested to find out how AI is actually being used in local government, it's a great eye-opener. It's very interactive. Also great for youth who are interested in looking at careers in AI. You can get tickets again through the Capitol Theatre box office, $79 if you would like to have an online or virtual ticket. And it's what's the $199. Perfect. Thanks. $199 if you'd like to have a seat and join us live and interact with the panelists. All proceeds from both these events will be donated back to the municipality and directed towards advancing technology within this municipality.
Thank you for that. And just to add, AI is here, whether you like it or not. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to just learn more and be aware. And when it comes time to talk about budgets and efficiencies, I think this is a really important piece of information for all of us to have, to think about how it can be harnessed for good whilst thinking about the ethics and privacy and the guardrails that we might need for engaging with AI. And just to add to Councillor Attridge's point, all the proceeds will go to technology and specifically to improving Canton Hub. Moving on to the Youth Councillor to Port Hope Council, the municipality is currently seeking any youth who are between the ages of 13 to 17 for an appointment to Youth Councillor for the municipality of Port Hope. The Youth Councillor will advocate to and on behalf of the youth of the municipality of Port Hope. For more information, please visit www.porthope.com/careers. And we're really excited to see the applicants and even more excited to see our new youth delegate at this council table in very short order. So finally, an update on 121 Cabin Street. I do not see Director Williams still with us, so I'm assuming that we have our supervisor, Chatwell, to provide an update on it.
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you to council. In October, the Property Standards Committee heard the appeal for the order on 121 Cabin Street. The order was confirmed. The owner of the property then had 14 days to file appeal with Superior Court to appeal the order, which they have followed up with under the 14 days to appeal the order. So we are currently waiting for that appeal to be heard in Superior Court. While we wait, our counsel is currently trying to negotiate with their counsel to have the property cleaned up. If the property does get cleaned up, it will comply with the order, and therefore we can cease the appeals process, as everything, including the past appeals case that's currently before the court by the building, under a building code order from the building departments for the building that has now collapsed, can be removed as well, and hopefully save us some legal fees on that. So we've given a kind of end of spring deadline as far as their communication back to us on whether they're going to clean up. They have proposed cleaning the property when they come to an agreement with the municipality to develop the property. We have not agreed to that. That would take too long. The things they have proposed that they would have to go through are Heritage Committee, floodplain, zoning amendments. We're not willing to wait that long, so we've advised legal counsel to proceed with the appeal process. Hopefully, they'll come back and decide to clean up the property, but we do have a contractor ready as soon as our appeal is confirmed, ready to go next day.
Thank you for that update. And of course, probably the question that's on many minds is, do you have any idea of what we're looking at in terms of timelines?
I would love to say that by the summer an appeals process will be heard, but there is a large amount of paperwork that council will have to go through. Our legal counsel will have to go through to respond to the appeal. And the fact that the building appeal has not been heard yet, that's why we're trying to get this negotiation done and sorted so that we don't have to wait on the Court of Appeals.
Thank you. Any questions about that update from anyone? Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Any other updates from around the council table? Yes, Councillor Darrell.
I got a couple. So Councillor Mink and myself will be at the Canton Hub Thursday, February 13th at 6:30 for an informal kind of no agenda. Just you got something on your mind, come on out and we'll have a talk about it. So we look forward to seeing anybody that comes out. Second thing is, with all this talk about slip and fall and the cold weather, we now have a free sand drop at Station 3 in Garden Hill. So if you need some sand, it's there for you to get. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other updates? Okay, seeing none, it is now time for question period. Remember, the purpose of question period is to make inquiries of council members related to matters of municipal business. Please note it's not meant to be an avenue to ask questions of staff. If you have questions specifically for your council members, you can ask them now. And I also want to highlight, if your questions are operational in nature, they may be best answered by a member of the staff following the meeting. Contact information for our directors and senior staff are always available at the door. So if you have operational questions, please ensure that you contact them. And if you do have a question, please identify your name and ensure the purple button is pushed. But before we get to the public, I'm going to start with councillors. Any questions around the table for your fellow councillors? Seeing none, I'll now, I don't know why we have these questions from the media. I feel like that we should have that in brackets as optional if the world ever changes. And now questions for the public, please.
Hi, Ed White, Mill Street. My question is not going to be what I even intended on talking about or questioning you tonight. I wish those guys hadn't left, the broadband guys, because I try and be positive as much as I can. But that was the vaguest presentation that I have ever heard before council. Your questions were very good questions, and they weren't answered, or they weren't answered properly, as far as I can see. Now, I don't know what their ask was, what they were wanting, what they wanted from this council. I mean, there's things like that are kind of important, like what's the cost to the municipality, private property access or refusal, timelines. There was a whole bunch of stuff there that, as far as I understand, this, if I remember rightly, this came before council back in the summer or something like that. There was some broadband thing that was going on up in Ward 2. There was a bunch of stuff. Environmental reviews, nothing was answered. So I'm confused at what, with the lack of information that council has, that they have said that the lack of information they have. I don't know how you can vote on anything, and especially in 2 weeks, if this has been going on for months. And the other question I ask is, was this the only group that came forward with this proposal, with the broadband thing? Or why is it this group? Now they've changed their name for some reason from one thing to another. Is this the only group that made a presentation to produce this information?
Thank you, Ed, for those two questions. I think that the questions that were raised around the table, and indeed that you're making reference to, are questions that both members of county staff heard, and it's my understanding that they intend to take those questions and the feedback away and start working on a response that will be community focused and community engaged, and to look at an entire plan that they will be bringing forward. And I think that is reflective of the motion that was put on the table by the deputy mayor and the specific requests that were being made of this council. So I do think that they heard the questions and that there's some work to be done in terms of who are all the different players that are involved. I'd be happy to take that also to county staff to provide a more fulsome information sharing about how the process has come together with federal funding, with provincial funding, and indeed the challenges of getting private sector support to come into that equation. But that is something that the county needs to answer.
Okay, maybe you could answer, the group that was here that made the presentation, what were they asking for?
That was the county of Northumberland.
Those two guys were the county?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, staff of Northumberland County that has been working on the broadband project for over 5 years now.
And how long they've been working on it?
Over 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
Jim Sculthorpe, 1685 Willow Beach Road. We had a heck of a wind on Monday. And so my question is, how did the new grader work? I think it worked really well. I have been around the municipality and it has pushed the snowbanks way farther back than any truck can do.
So are you answering your own question then?
Well, I actually have pictures of it. I doubt that any of you do.
Please do share those pictures. We'd appreciate having
I have.
Great,
Anyway,
thank
so
you.
thank you for the new grader. It's doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you. You did ask a question, so we do appreciate that. So this concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda, and I'm in a position to adjourn the meeting of the Committee of the Whole at 8:59 p.m. Thank you very much.